Welcome to our PC building guide. Today we'll be showing you a step-by-step walkthrough on how to build a computer. Before you get started, we're going to show you a few things. If you are looking to build a PC but aren't set on what components to use, I would recommend checking out PCPartPicker.com. They have a built-in compatibility filter to make sure everything works in your system. Components are price searched across multiple websites for the lowest prices, and you can view other people's completed builds to get an idea of something you might have in mind. Be sure to install Windows on a USB drive from the Windows 10 website, or you'll have no operating system to use. Be sure to install all motherboard and graphics card drivers so that all your hardware can work properly. Motherboard driver support can be found on the manufacturer's websites, and graphics card drivers can be found at either a GeForce Experience or AMD support. Carefully remove your processor from the packaging. Unhinge the retention arm on the CPU socket so you can actually install your processor. Line up the triangle on the processor to the triangle on the socket. The processor should drop in. You will have to apply zero pressure. Move the retention arm back into its original place to secure the processor. Before installing your heatsink or CPU cooler, be sure to put thermal paste in the center of your processor if your heatsink does not come with it pre-applied. Be sure to apply a pea-sized amount onto the processor itself. Secure the heatsink and plug in the cable to the CPU fan header. I/O shields are important for keeping dust outside of your case. If your I/O shield has prongs in the back of them, do not remove them because they provide pressure against the motherboard to keep it intact. Before installing your motherboard, make sure the standoff screws on the case line up with the screw holes on your motherboard. Proceed to slowly set the motherboard into the case. Configure your case manual for installing screws. Double check the motherboard to make sure all the screws are installed. Grab your SSD or hard drive. In some cases you might need to screw in the drive, but in this case we had pins on the drive bay so you could clip onto the sides of your hard drive. All I had to do was clip them in and slide them into the drive. Refer to your case manual on how to install your drive. It is recommended that you install your power supply before the motherboard, but because it arrived after the fact, we installed it later. If you have a modular power supply, be sure to plug in your cables, the Type 4 side, into the power supply. Set in the power supply in the bottom of the case. Screw it in from the back of the case with the hex screws included with the power supply. Locate your 24-pin connector on your motherboard on the right-hand side. Be sure the tab on the cord is facing away on the motherboard, then install it. Locate the CPU connector on your motherboard. Plug in the CPU power cable to the CPU header on your motherboard. Make sure the cable reads CPU, as PCIe cables will fry your system. Because we won't be using an Ethernet plugged directly to the back of the PC, we have to install a Wi-Fi adapter to access the internet. Be sure to unplug one PCI bracket on the back of the case before installing the adapter. Locate ×1 PCI Express slot on your motherboard and install the adapter, making sure it clips into place. Screw back in the screw that you originally took out to secure the card in place. Locate the ×16 PCI Express slot on your motherboard. Remove two brackets from the back of your case and push back the tab on the slot so you can install the graphics card. Since the GPU we are using will not need power cables, we will not be plugging them in. But if you have a more powerful card, you will need them. Locate the power connectors on your GPU and plug in as many PCIe cables as you need. Plug in a USB to any USB port on your computer with the Windows 10 operating system on it. It can be downloaded on the Microsoft web page.